Very good morning and a warm welcome to all of you here to this today's session titled Bridging the Gap Between Knowing and Doing. Gopal sir, he's not the first time that he's coming to Globsin. Earlier in 2011 convocation, he has graced the GBS convocation as a chief guest. The topic that Gopal sir has selected, bridging the gap between knowing and doing, is of tremendous significance at present, where institutions across the globe has moved their teaching and learning in online mode. Gopal sir really needs no introduction, but for the benefit of the students, I'll just read out a brief profile of his. Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan, 53 years of management experience, 32 years of board experience, over 100 keynotes in India and abroad, author of 16 books. He studied physics at Kolkata University, engineering IIT Kharagpur, attended the advanced management program at Harvard Business School. He has been a professional manager from 1967. He has served as a chairman of Unilever Arabia, as a managing director of Brooke Bond Lipton, and vice chairman of Hindustan Lever, as director of Tata Sons and several Tata companies. He serves as an independent director and non-executive chairman of Castrol India, and also as an independent director of Hemers Holding PLC, Sri Lanka. Now he spends his time in writing, advising, speaking, and teaching. He also serves as an executive in resident at SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, Mumbai, and also a distinguished professor of IIT Kharagpur. Now, many of us have read or heard some of the books that he has written: The Made in India Manager, The Six Lenses, When the Penny Drops, The Case of the Bonsai Manager, so on and so forth. Sir, I don't want to take much time. Please, I would request you to take forward today's session. A very warm welcome from the Globsin fraternity. We are indeed honored and privileged, sir.
Thank you very much, Globsin, for having me over. It's a pleasure to be in your institute. So, in the 30 minutes that I have, I need to tell you what are the principal points I want to make today to you students, and uh, what is the story behind it. Let me start with the story because, you know, as Shauli just explained in her introduction, I studied in decent colleges, St. Xavier's, Calcutta, IIT Kharagpur. And back in the 60s, if you were studying physics honors and in computer science at IIT Kharagpur, you were a bit of a bamun, or you felt that you were a bit of a bamun. You had a pretty good track record in education, and but there were no jobs available. Unlike today, when people come to your campus to recruit, in those days we had to go to other people and knock for a job. So it was by coincidence that I saw an advertisement from Hindustan Lever asking for engineers to join the what they used to call the EDP department, Electronic Data Processing, which is an old way of saying software IT. And Hindustan Lever had a good reputation. And I was only 21, I was young. I applied and luckily got the job. Now, here is a guy who is coming from an aristocracy uh, in terms of education, I mean. And I said, fine, I've got a great job in a great company and I will be punching buttons and working on the computer. When I arrived in Hindustan Lever, the first 2 weeks were spent in the usual formalities that happen in any company. And then they gave me a ticket and said, go to Nashik. I had never heard of Nashik because I had stepped out of Bengal virtually for the first time. At the age of 21, I had never been in Bengal. I was born in Calcutta, raised in Calcutta. So when I went to Nashik, they said you'll have to work as a salesman for about 2 months, and they gave me a senior salesman to work with, and it was quite terrible from my point of view because I would go shop to shop from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening, meeting various grocers and trying to sell them more Sunlight or Lifebuoy or Lux or whatever. And the conversation was in Marathi, so I learned a little bit of enough Marathi to get by. And I said, what kind of a bloody work is this? I'm an engineer, physics honors. Mind you, IIM and all had just started at that time, so I had not done a management degree. As soon as I returned, I said, good riddance to bad rubbish. They said, now you go to Nagpur to work as a supervisor. So another 2 months went in going around Bardi and places like that and working as a supervisor. When I thought good riddance to bad rubbish and I came back, they sent me to a depot. It is in a place called Sankley Street here in Bombay, from where trucks would come from the factory and they would go to be sent off to stockists and so on and so forth. So, first 1 year went in all this, what in my eyes was low quality, repetitive work. When I inquired as to why the company makes me do that, they said, you can't computerize anything unless you understand the company from the grassroots. So unless you do the most basic jobs, you're not going to understand how this company works. And I felt rather let down. At 21, 22, you are a bit idealistic because I thought I was come to do buddhi work and not raddi work. That was my image. But 5, 7 years later, as my career progressed and I took charge of some sales areas, I realized that the lesson they had taught me was a very correct one. And the lesson that I learned was that you cannot be a general if you don't know how the soldier, the Jawan, is working. So you better do the Jawan's work when you are Jawan. Otherwise, it's too late. Once you become a brigadier, you can't learn the Jawan's work. There is dignity to all labor, and everything that you do counts. Those were the early lessons I got. And then by this time, it was 1974, 75, IIMs, I think in Kolkata and then Ahmedabad had come up, and people were joining with an MBA degree, PGDM as it was called. And those guys were all wanting to be in strategy. So everybody said, I want to be a brand manager, I want to be in strategy. And at least I went and worked in the field. Those guys were reluctant to go and work in the field. But Hindustan Lever hammered them into shape and made them also do the same thing. And then I grew to a more senior position, and I used to see many more IIMs, many other management schools like Globsin and others. And people would come and say, I want to do financial strategy, I want to do marketing strategy, I want to do uh, M&A, and so on and so forth. And I started wondering, why is there a fixation in young people's mind? There's a glamour associated with strategy. ये बुद्धि का काम है. I used to joke with my college friends when I was in studying in Calcutta that all you Bengalis either become an economist, communist, or a journalist. There are only three jobs that Bengalis go for. Um, all are intellectual jobs: communist, journalist, economist. When will you guys start doing real work? And so the subject I've chosen to talk to you today, it's not about Bengalis or anything, mind you. And if there are Bengalis in the audience, I'm sure you will not take me amiss because I'm more of a Bengali than many of the other people, having been born and raised in Calcutta. Probably speak Bengali a little better than most other people born and raised in Calcutta, other than the Bengalis themselves. So I got very interested in the subject of knowing versus doing because throughout my career, I found that there is this gap. People know what to do, but they don't know how to do it. They don't do it. If you look at the government's programs, it's not that they are stupid people. They are people like you and me who have joined the IAS or IPS or whatever, but they are not able to execute it. There are lots of obstacles and problems. You join a company, even the very well-known companies, including Hindustan Lever and Tata Steel and TCS and ITC and what have you, and you find that you know what to do, but it can't be done, or there are lots of obstacles. Even running Globsin, I mean, the students are not involved with it, but what is so obviously that something you must be done, your faculty may have a different point of view. So it is a universal problem that mere knowledge, which is Saraswati. doesn't result in action. Converting Saraswati to Lakshmi is not easy, whether it's in mythological terms or in real terms. Because Lakshmi is staying in her own domain of work, and Saraswati is remaining in her own domain of um, intellect and knowledge. So I got very interested and I started not only reading books and material, I started sharing with young people because I feel I owe it to them. And that's why I'm today sharing with you. I'm very happy that Shaoli chased me from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth to make sure that I come to Globsin and speak. And I said I must then choose a subject which is very close to my heart and which may not be close to the heart of young people, but they are young and the mind is very fresh, so they will listen to me. In this connection, I would like to recommend two books, which I'm sure is available in the Globsin library. Otherwise, they will get the books for you. And I would very much like the Globsin faculty members, whoever uh, can undertake this, to do some exercises based on these two books and give it to the students so that whatever I'm saying today, because I'll speak for only another 20, 25 minutes, can be digested and understood by young people. So I'm going to go through it like a Duranto Express, very fast. One is a book called The Knowing Doing Gap. That's the title of the book, The Knowing Doing Gap. And the authors are Jeffrey Pfeffer, Pfeffer, and Robert Sutton. So that's one book I would ask you to read. And the second book I would ask you to read is Execution. That's the title of the book. And it's by the former chairman of a large US company called Larry Bossidy, Bossidy, Larry Bossidy and Ram Charan. Both these books are about 18, 20 years old, so they are not brand new books. But the good thing about this is they talk in a very practical way. There are no major PowerPoint charts and fancy diagrams which you have to spend all your time understanding. And what I'm going to tell you today is partly based on my experiences and partly based on what I have learned from these books and many other things. But I don't want to flood you with material to read. Um, where I worked in Unilever for 31 years, and as you know, Unilever is a large global company. Then I worked in Tata for 18 years, and that's also a very large, I think I can call it a global company now. And one of the things that has struck me in both Unilever and Tata, there is so much knowledge amongst the managers and the employees of Unilever and Tata. If only Unilever knew what Unilever knows, it would be so wonderful. If only Tata knew what Tata knows, it would be so wonderful. But transmission of knowledge is not very easy, and therefore there are consulting companies that have come up. And most of you will be very interested to join a consulting company. I don't want to take names of consulting companies, they're very well known, they pay very well. But you're doing thinking work there, you're not doing work there. And if you join a Hindustan Lever or a Tata Steel or a TCS, you'll be doing work. My definition of doing is that either you're buying or you're making or you're selling. If you're not doing these three things, then you're not doing. So you may be in the economics department, you may be a very fine economist, but you're giving your output is your intellect, which is valuable. Don't get me wrong, uh, but you're not doing. If you're in the legal department, you're offering advice, but you're not doing, and so on and so forth. So I put a great premium on buying, making, and selling. Unfortunately, these three jobs pay the least. So B school kids coming out don't want these jobs. They want to join investment banks. What do investment banks do? They are brokers. They're in between people. They just carry stories from one to the other and try to make a deal. And if it's a big deal, they get 1%. That's a lot of money. So it's an unfortunate reality in the world that work which delivers great value to people is not very well paying. And work which is not real and is artificial pays very well. That's an unfortunate reality. So I'm not dissuading you from going into consulting jobs, but I want you to consider that consultants are people who are like birds. They take knowledge from company A, they take knowledge from company B, they use their own intellect, which is of a very high order. They recruit top class people and they sell it to the third person, right? It's like saying, I bought cheese from one place, I bought bread from the other place, I made a cheese sandwich and I gave it to the third person. That's also value adding. So don't get me wrong. I would like to see young managers spend the first 5 years of their career when it doesn't matter whether you were paid 40,000 rupees a month or 2 lakhs a month. There's no big value in starting at 2 lakhs a month because you know you're being overpaid. Let's face it. When I started my career, I started on 750 rupees or 1000 rupees. And my father used to tell me that that was the salary on which he retired. And now my son tells me that although I'm very well off and my pension is good, I'm not unhappy. He says, but that's the amount of money I make every year. So that is one form of progress. But in another form, you must always feel worth the money you're being paid. And I think you'll feel, believe me, when you are 40 or 50, you'll say, I listened to some guy who came and spoke at Globsin, and he said, make, buy, or sell. I spent 5 years doing that. I'm better off for it. So, the essence of the book that Jeffrey Pfeffer and Robert Sutton have written about the knowing doing gap is, why is there a gap between knowledge and doing? Why is it that you think all the people in the government of India or the government of West Bengal are stupid? They're not. They're about as stupid as any of us, by the way, or they're about as clever as any of us. But the ability to deliver that is not easy, and you have to understand this and work at it. Okay. And that's the essence of what you'll get. And I believe that will happen when you value doers as much as thinkers. When young people value doing as much as thinking. In fact, it's always been my dream, and it's a suggestion for Globsin, since Professor Debo Prasad and others are all also on this, Professor Ravindra, uh, that can't there be a B school which is like a teaching hospital?
Sure, sir.
And there are lots of problems in becoming a teaching hospital. But, would you go to a doctor who's got lots of degrees, but who never touched the human body? I mean, you know, he sees blood, he says, Are Baba, nay, I don't want this. No, you would not go to such a doctor. So, by definition, would you go to listen to a music performance of somebody who's got a doctorate in musicology and who understands the tones and the frequencies of various instruments, but who never sung a song? You'd rather go and listen to Kishore Kumar or Kishori Amonkar, because they may not be able to talk musicology. Kishore Kumar certainly could not, but he or Hemantada, they all had terrific voices. So management is a performing art. Management is not science. Management is not getting nuclear physics, you know, because in a science you do the same thing again and again, you'll get the same result. If I drop this pen from here, it will always fall, because Newton said there's a law of gravity. But in management, it doesn't work that way. In management, every time you do it is different. I might have solved a labor problem in one factory, but it doesn't work in the other factory. So it's a very strong suite that a person has to say, I did it. And what they do in a teaching hospital is they actually take the young people, make them interns in the hospital. So in the night shift, you're handling the patient. And that's what Hindustan Lever did to me by sending me to work as a salesman. They said, you learn from the senior guy for the first 2 weeks, then you sell on your own. And I could talk to you for 2 hours about the lessons I learned about human psychology, human behavior, more than all the organizational behavior lectures I could have heard in a management school, because I saw it live. I did it. And my vision of a B school, I've been saying this for the last few years, but it's very difficult to implement because the B school management are also struggling to produce students whom the market wants, cram their head with all that knowledge that the teacher, faculty are capable of delivering. But when a B school kid comes out, they've never done anything in their life. So I wonder, for example, why can't the accounts of a B school be kept by the students? Maybe under the guidance of a CFO. Why can't the cleaning and logistics of the school be done by the students? Can't we give jobs to students, menial jobs, huh, by the way? I'm not saying they should be fancy jobs, whereby they learn the dignity of labor and do things. One of the things that I'm very fond of in SP Jain is that that's exactly what they do. Every student goes into a stint of working with the slum children. And it's count for marks. Huh? This is not, they hate it, by the way. They don't love it, but they go and see how their future customer lives. And it brings them a sense of sobriety because the same students are sitting in nice hostels in Andheri, in Bombay, and cribbing that the bed is too soft or the fan doesn't run or whatever. Then they go and look at these people, 7 people living in a small area, and they say, there is another India. And that's the real India, not the one I'm living in. So I would encourage Globsin to the extent possible. Regrettably, Calcutta has many slums. And I think if you should find a way for where they go and do things. All the student, all the organization, now Shaoli has arranged work, chase me. In SPJN, it will always be the students who do it. They will be given the task. Arranging, setting up the Zoom, making sure that the speaker has. Uh, I'm not trying to do Shaoli out of a job, but Shaoli's job is to guide you. This is not about Shaoli or her job. It is about students doing things. And students who can't find the time for work with their hand will never be valuable with the work of their head. So that's the first book, Knowledge. The second book is called Execution by Larry Bossidy. Larry Bossidy was a chairman of Honeywell, and Ram Charan is a very well-known uh, management consultant. They make a point because there an academic has got together with a practitioner and they've written this book. And the point that they make, and this is another food for thought for Globsin, for any management institute, and since I have some regard for Globsin, and I'm talking to you today, I'm suggesting to you. They say execution is a discipline. Marketing is a discipline. Finance is a discipline. Regulation is a discipline. Production systems and supply chain is a discipline. Now, the moment a faculty recognizes something as a discipline, then they start thinking about how to convert their knowledge into a pedagogic form and deliver it to students. So, if you're a professor of marketing, you know how to teach marketing. You know how to teach supply chain. You know how to teach digital systems if you got that background. But nobody teaches execution in a B school. Show me a professor of execution. I've not come across one. Maybe somebody does have one. Because somehow execution is thought होते अपने आप हो जाएगा. And that is precisely अपने आप नहीं होता है in companies. That's the experience that I have. So Larry Bossidy's book is very good because it's very practical. And it tells you in detail how you can prepare step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Just like in a brand strategy, a marketing professor can tell you how to think about it, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Now, of course, you must have, I'm not saying you can execute without a strategy. Neither can you have strategy without execution. You need both. So please don't get the impression that I'm downplaying strategy and thinking. All I'm saying is don't downplay execution because without you look at what's happening with this farmers bill just now. Okay, some clever guys have sat and made 3 bills. The bills are not bad actually, but how do you implement it? And so it's not going to get executed. This is the kind of problem that you have in companies where you think of something. I remember when I joined Hindustan Lever in 1967, there was a huge labor union problem going on. And the union problem was the company had 3 sales forces. Sales force for product group 1, 2, and 3. So let's say there were 100 people in each sales force. There were 300 salesmen. Somebody sat and thought about it and said, if I could combine the products into 2 groups, so there'll be only number 1 and number 2, then I don't need 300 salesmen, I can do it 250. Now I'm exaggerating to make the point, to make it simple. So they had what is called sales force reorganization. And when it came to execution, it became like a farmer's bill. The salesman went on strike. The whole place was in flames. And one of the jobs that I was given was to go and help in the depot where there was a strike so that I could substitute for the depot clerk and do some of their work. So there are three building blocks for execution. This is what Larry Bossidy and all say. And they've explained those three building blocks. First is you must know what is the behavior that you must have. And behavior means know your people, know your business. That's why Hindustan Lever sent me off to the field. Second, you learn to be realistic. You know, one of my great experiences was I was sent to Jalandhar. Uh, I was by this time a regional sales manager. And it sounds funny, but I'll say it because it's true. I carry a diary with me, a little jot pad, you know. I still carry it even at this age. I carry this little jot pad, and I make marks in this remarks, you know. So when I going around the shops, I made a little uh, uh, grid. Amount of time spent on greetings, amount of time spent on product presentation, amount of time made on closing the sale, collecting the cash, something. And every call I used to enter it. I feel like a silly fellow now, but you know what the hell? I was 21, 22, and you must be idealistic at that time. And during the lunchtime, I told this person in Jalandhar, who's twice my age, by the way, that you know you're spending too much time in greetings because he would go and he would speak in Punjabi, ki hal chal hai pappe, toda pota da ki hal hai, etc., etc. And then he would say, ah, kitna laks likhna hai, kitna rin likhna hai, the whole thing will be over. And he said, you know, you think I'm spending too much time on greetings. But young man, I know you're my boss. Sales is about relationships. I'm trying to build a relationship. And he asked me to repeat the calls in the afternoon. And I made a hash of it because I didn't know who had a grandson in the first place. I didn't even know the guy's married. So I would go in a very sterile conversation and say, "Kitna peti likho aapko, lux ka, sunlight ka." So you learn many of the things about behavior and people and relationships. Um, and you expand your capabilities. And above all, you get to know yourself. You know, it's amazing. The person you know the least is the person who's closest to you. We all assume that if you've been doing this for a long time, you know everything about it. That's not true. For example, you don't know your own mind. You've been married to somebody for 30 years, you haven't really understood your spouse. You know, those sorts of things. So, connect strategy and operations is something that you learn very quickly. Connect people and operations and review. Those are the lessons that come out in the book by Larry Bossidy. And since I'm short of time, I'm mentioning this very telegraphically. I would strongly urge if any of the faculty members could give some sort of create a task whereby the students can actually do this. I want to close with a little story about J.R.D. Tata, and then it's time for questions, which Shaoli will coordinate or whatever, right? Um, J.R.D. Tata was born in 1904, and his father, although he could afford to send him to study anywhere in the world, frankly, he said, hey, you have to learn business by doing things. So his father had no illusion that there's a learning doing gap. So he sent him off to Bombay to work as an executive assistant. And so J.R.D. Tata has written in his biography about what all he learned. Now, one of the passions that J.R.D. Tata had was flying. That's very well known now. In those days, think of 1926, 27, the idea of flying itself was brand new, completely new. So he got this idea when the government of the then colonial government announced that they will have a plane service between Karachi and Bombay. He said, why don't Tatas get into airlines? And he went to a mentor. You know, there was an Englishman called Stevenson, I think his name is. And he said, you know, I want to This is the entrepreneur, J.R.D. Tata. He said, I want to start a plane service. He said, make a business plan. He said, how do you make a business plan? He helped him. When it went to the Tata Sons board, it was rejected, saying this is too fanciful. And then Peterson went to Dorabji Tata, who was then the chairman, and said, Dorab, let the young man fly. He's asking for 2 crores. Now, 2 crores looks very little. Nowadays, people get salary of 2 crores. But in those days, 2 crores was a lot of money, lot of money. And that's how in 1932, there was a startup called Tata Airlines. And JRD was personally was a very doing type, you know. He built it up by the 1950s into a world-class airline. We all know this because I was also very young at that time, and none of you was born probably amongst the students, certainly. But he would go to check the toilet, you know, whether the door latch was working. And he was a guy who had skill in his hand. He would actually carry a screwdriver and he'll open it up and fix it. This is the way, knowing, doing gap. At the same time, he would land in London or New York and meet top airline people and learn what's happening at the thinking level. Then he built it up. Of course, unfortunately, it got nationalized and then he was kicked out, literally kicked out by, I think it was Morarji Desai's time. Without being told anything, he just read in the newspaper that he's no more the chairman. And then, as you know, Air India has been in the government's hands for the last 50 years, and successive governments, name whichever political party, have made a mess of it. And now they want us to take our daughter back. And I don't know if Tatas will do it, but it's not my job. I have retired, so I don't have an opinion on the matter. So remember, don't let the knowing doing gap haunt you through your career. Do the doing early on so that as you become more senior, you can do the knowing. That's my story. That's my advice. And it's over to Shauli now because I think I've said what I have to. I could go on for 3 hours, by the way, but that's not the purpose. I just want to stimulate your curiosity and hopefully get you to read these 2 books and do some of your own thinking, which your faculty can review with you. Thank you, Shauli. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. These 2 books we will be procuring in the library and request our faculty members to, conduct an exercise as suggested by you. But sir, I would like to mention that the Globsin students, as part of the Care for Society initiatives, they work with the underprivileged.
Very good. Excellent. I didn't know that.
And our KYLF activity has been, recognized by the All India Council of Technical Education, AICT, as a best practice pan-India. So I just
Super.
wanted to share that.
That's very good. I didn't know that. Please do more of it.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
And when the students are sent to do this, they all feel very bad about it. I'm sure that your students are no different. But tell them, everything else they've learned, and you faculty can't tell them, but I'm telling them, everything else your faculty have taught you, you can forget. But don't forget that KYLF. That's what's going to make you a performer. Yeah, go ahead.
And also we have another vertical called Serendipity, one of the Beyond Education, where which the name actually was conceived by Mr. Bikram Dasgupta, founder and chairman, where the students get to apply all the management function, right, from fundraising to marketing to administration in the form of a project.
Very good.
So these are the things that we try, our way to bridge the gap.
Very good. Excellent. I'm very happy. I'm glad that Globsin is doing it. My best wishes.
Thank
Do
you,
more
sir.
of it.
I'll ask some of the questions. Now, Professor Manas Chakrabarti is a senior professor of OBHR. He has asked a question. Earlier companies that elaborate management training program for 2 years to bridge the gap between the theoretical concepts learned in B school. Now that has been reduced to 2 days or 2 hours of onboarding, what would you say that companies have shifted the responsibility and passed on the burden to employees in academia?
I think Professor Manas makes a correct point. If I think back when I was young, you learned by doing because you had no MBA college anyway. And there was no illusion in your mind that you knew something. The trouble with MBA students is they graduate thinking they know something about management. And it's very tough for the faculty to tell them, you know nothing about management, because they spent 2 years and spent a certain sum of money trying to get a degree in that subject. But if companies are reducing the doing part of the management trainee or intern or whatever you call it, that's a great shame. At least in Unilever and Tata, I know that that's not happening, but maybe others are doing it.
Another a question posed by your student Chandan Jana. That sir, you stated before taking the charge of a brigadier, you should know how soldiers are doing their work on the ground. Then, sir, can you tell us what would be the best way to start your career after an MBA with a specialization in marketing?
Go to a company uh, which is in the field of maybe doing electronic hardware or soap or pharmaceutical, and say, I want a job in making, in buying, making, or selling. Now, if you've studied LLB and you're a lawyer, then I don't expect you to do that. But for an average MBA, make, buy, make, or sell. BMS.
Another question Ananda Mukherjee has asked, as a student, how would we know how much we are worth? Knowing one's worth.
You know, it's a good thing if you're a student and you don't know what you're worth, because you're worthless. Now, worthless is an English word which can mean you're worth the moon, you know, or you can mean that you're worth zero. I'm not trying to be provocative or just upset you, but you have a student will know his worth by showing results. I've written a book called "What the CEO Really Wants from You." It was published by HarperCollins in I don't know 2012, I think. What the CEO really wants from you, where I've said there are 4 A's that the students will. It's like a staircase, you know, staircase A1, A2, A3, A4 to find out what he's really worth. The first A is accomplishment. Start doing things and delivering. So when I was 23, they sent me to be the sales head of whole of Mysore or Karnataka as it was called. And I had a target to sell 100 and I was getting 90 or 110. And somebody was telling me that's good, that's bad. You're actually delivering. If I was a production person, I was sent to the factory floor. There were 200 people working on the shop floor, and I had to get certain output for a certain number of man hours per ton. So, accomplishment is the first A. The second A is affability, which is can you accomplish by being affable? Affable doesn't mean being a sweetie pie, you know. I use the word affable, it may give the impression that you want, but without hurting people, can you rock the boat without sinking the boat? That's what affability means. As the Punjabis would say, hole hole pyar naal kaam kara lo. So that's the second A. The third A is advocacy. Can you sell an idea? And if you can't sell an idea, I'm afraid you must get an idea and you must be able to develop it and you must be able to sell it, because all of us are salesmen. And the fourth A is authenticity. People must trust you. So you gradually go up this ladder, and you're doing all the A's at all the time, mind you, but the proportion keeps changing. That's what I've written in my book. And that's how you know your worth. I hope I've answered the question asked by the person.
Next question by Neha Megotia. If a MBA fresher is appointed as a junior executive manager or some other post, and he's given a job of printing and scanning documents, do you think it's a little bit of, demotivating to start such work at the beginning itself?
Well, if your full time job is to do a peon's job and you're doing that for 2 years and they're paying you 50,000 rupees a month, then of course it's crazy. But if you learn to photocopy documents or scan documents, like I did for being a salesman for 2 months or 3 months, to understand the dignity of labor of a peon, I don't see anything wrong with it. But if there's a company which is taking a junior executive, paying him 30,000 or 50,000 a month, and is making him photocopy for the next 5 years or scan document, that's crazy. I agree.
Can I make a point here, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely bang on right. In fact, I had a student who had a lot of complaint that during an internship that she was being used for photocopying. And when I asked her what was she photocopying, she did not know.
Right, right.
Who has stopped you from reading what you're photocopying? And this was Standard and Poor,
Yeah.
where she's probably photocopying things that will be sold in the market for lakhs of rupees.
Exactly.
She doesn't bother to read it, and she just comes with a complaint that, in fact, probably I closely belong to your generation, because I started during my management training period, I spent about 3 months converting personal files into data sheets. Those days we had Cardex and all that. Computers were not there. But I remember doing that mundane work to be the most educative, because I was reading every page of at least 1,000 files, personal files, and the amount of things that I learned there still hold with me. I
Right.
just one small bit. There was somebody who had put in a leave application, and reason for leave, the person had written to enjoy leave. That has stayed with me, because why should we? When I got the opportunity of revising the leave policy, I took that column away. Why do you have to tell lies? So a lot of things can happen by just doing mundane work. And just one more thing, I think I, like you, I still have this in my pocket, even if I'm sitting at home. And the previous one, I have just gotten over the old one. And I also started my career at 750 rupees per month.
Very good. Excellent.
Next question by student Arjun Chakrabarti. Hello, sir. Taking a chunk from your initial experience when you were sent to Nasik and completely changed your role to something else. In that case, how can a person once knowing work without willing to do it, as it is always be a hindrance in time of execution? I mean, without knowing, how can he work, which might be a hindrance? Maybe he means that.
You know, the knowing and doing is like the chicken and the egg. Which came first is a matter of, there are many things that we do without knowing it. And there are many things that we know and don't do anything about it. So it's a chicken and egg story. When I was sent off, I didn't know what's Lifebuoy soap. How do you sell Lifebuoy soap? How do you produce something on a factory production line? But then there are other people who are doing that job 24/7, who've been doing it for the last 20 years. And the challenge for me was to find out whether, from learning from them, not from textbooks, I could learn about it. And there are all sorts of lessons you learn. Like the salesman will tell you, Lifebuoy, they have put some masala in it which kills germs. I didn't have to wait 60 years to find out when COVID-19 came why Lifebuoy is such an effective soap. Okay, I learned it when I went there. So I think the attitude of a young person should be, there is so much to learn and so little time for me, that then you start learning. But if you think I already know a lot and hurry up and when can I get action, then you get a different outcome. You know, we talk of management development. The Chettiars, there's a community of trading community in Tamil Nadu called the Chettiars. You've probably heard the name. They are the equivalent of Bansals or Agarwals in other places. You know how they train their young people? They say at the age of 11, this is a traditional system, 100 years, 200 years ago. At the age of 11, you join the company. And when you join the company, because there's no MBA and all that, 150 years ago, you are called a Podiyan. Podiyan in Tamil means assistant, sidekick. Literally means sidekick. Podiyan means very small. 10 years you do the job of a Podiyan. And at 21, when you sort of first got your whiskers and your beard started growing and you started shaving, 10 years later, they will make you an Aduttavan. Aduttavan means the next. I'm an assistant to somebody else. Okay? 10 years I do Aduttavan. At 31, I become a Pangali. Pangali means Pangu means share. I become a shareholder. I get some shares in the company. And at 41, I became the Mudalali. Mudalali means the top guy. So you become uh, intern, assistant, uh, shareholder, and at 41, you become the CEO. And you know what they do when you join as an assistant? Imagine a 11-year-old boy who's joined. They will say, hey, go and get me some beetle leaves. Pan leke aao. He doesn't know which shop to go to, where to go, but he learns. So there are many examples that you learn by doing. Yeah. What else?
Next, another student, Arnab Haldar. So, with respect to the FMCG sector, what strategies HUL adopted to maintain the leadership position in that sector?
Well, that's a very big question, Arnab. I get scared when I say Arnab nowadays. The other Arnab has made all Arnabs very famous. Uh, I would say three things in response to what you're saying without getting too long and pedantic. The first is a high people orientation that goes all the way from recruiting top class people by making them competitive, by making them collaborative, by sharpening their skills, by advancing their careers, all that stuff goes into people orientation. The second thing I would mention is market orientation, consumer orientation, retailer orientation, efficiency orientation, all that goes into the market orientation. And the third thing I would say is strategic orientation. As you grow in the company, how can I continue to be number one? And I think that's a pretty straightforward formula. Even if you ask me for Tata's, I would say the same thing. You know, it's coincidence that HUL has been the number one FMCG company for the last 70 years in India. And Tata's have been the number one business group for the last 100 years. And I would say Tata's and Levers, in their own way, do about the same thing. I hope Arnab's got an answer to his question.
There are so many questions. Now, Shomik Sarkar asks, being in a particular domain, how one should go about working in order to open the doors for another domain and the next when he wants to change domain, what I understand. Is there a particular way to do it?
Well, when I moved from Lever to Tata, I had spent all my life with soap and shampoo and dalda and tea and so on. I suddenly was in motor cars and electricity generation. And I think when you change domain, you have to reset the knowledge counter to zero again. It's very difficult to do. I was 52 when I made the change from Lever to Tata. It's damn tough at 52 to reset your mind to zero. When I was in Levers, I'd been around 30 years. I was the vice chairman. Everybody would click their heels and salute you. Here, nobody cared because I'm an unknown guy. And I liken it to the attitude of I had a driving license in India for 30 years. I drove a Fiat car or an Ambassador car, not stopping at pedestrian crossings, honking the car, you know, all the bad habits that we have in India in driving. I went to UK and I failed my driving test. So I asked the guy, you know, Constable, you have failed me in my driving test. I've been driving for the last 30 years in India. He said, sir, if I may point out, you have learned how to move a car, but you haven't learned how to drive a car. And there's a big difference. And then I learned to, you know, watch the traffic on the right and all the rules of the game. Of course, when I came back to Bombay and I would stop at a pedestrian crossing, everybody would be honking behind me. Saying, Pagal ho gaya kya? Kyun ruka hua hai? So I had to relearn it. So when you change one domain to another, you have to understand it's like driving in another city. You may know how to drive a car, but this city is different and you have to have that humility. Now I'm going to sign off, Shaoli. I know you have probably many more questions, but
I know many, and they just want to hear from you many questions, but I know you have another meeting and you have to rush. So, sir, thank you on behalf of Globson Business School. We are really honored, privileged to have you, and a big thank you for all your insights. And we really look forward to have you amongst us in more such sessions in the future.
Thank you to all your students. You've been very patient in listening and asking questions.
Thank you, sir.
And Manush Babu, Devanjyoti Babu, all good luck. Thanks. Good luck.
Thank
all,
you
all
so
the-
much, sir. The 3 A's will be with me, and the 2
Four
books. I'll definitely work on the 3 A's.
4 A's, 4 A's.
4 A's, 4 A's. Yes, you're
Accomplishment,
right.
capability, advocacy,
Advocacy and
authenticity.
authenticity. The 4 A's and the 2 books you advocated.
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
books. Yes, yes. Thank
All
you
the
so
best to your
much.
students. God bless you.
Thank
And
you, sir.
take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for coming.